You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife. Riding on the backs of others. It is common for narcissists, particularly those of lesser and mid-range persuasion, to ride on the successes, attributes, characteristics and abilities of others through character trait acquisition. After all, why work to get something when you can hijack something belonging to somebody else as a consequence of a lack of boundary recognition, sense of entitlement, absence of emotional empathy, and a lack of accountability for your behaviour? Moreover, many of these narcissists have no intrinsic ability or talent, and therefore have to in effect steal it from elsewhere to forge some kind of living in the world. Of course, there are narcissists which have a natural ability, that they have some form of ingrained talent, but especially amongst the ranks of lesser and mid-range, which of course includes Harry's wife, there are many which are very much the empty vessel, devoid of talent, ability, specialism, and therefore, in order to enable them to control other people and draw fuel from them and gain those residual benefits, they have to purloin those character traits from more successful individuals and pass off those achievements, abilities, and characteristics as their own. We have a splendid example of Harry's wife doing this through the Archwell Foundation, as it's recently produced its Impact Report. I'm not going to go through every single item upon it, but I am going to demonstrate how this is a document that is created by a narcissist to highlight the behaviours of the narcissist in order to get to the prime aims. The document covers 2020 to 2022 and commences with a letter from our co-executive director. The letter has a quotation in large font stating, "At the Archwell Foundation, our core purpose is quite simply to do good." Presumably by that it's meant sending pelters from across the ocean regularly against your family, breaching confidences, making the last years of an aged monarch more difficult than they needed to be as a consequence of your behaviour, taking the limelight away from somebody's funeral, both that of the Queen and of Prince Philip, with regard to your behaviours. That must be the type of good that they're talking about. Maybe it's the good of telling lies about your family on both sides in bombshell interviews. Apparently, as well, the quote states, "We meet the moment by showing up." Well, yes, if it's a bandwagon that's worth attending for a picosecond, taking action, really, and using our unparalleled spotlight to uplift and unite communities. Well, I suppose you do have an unparalleled spotlight, which is being a pair of self-centered, self-preoccupied, whining dickheads. To uplift, to unite communities, both local and global, online and offline. We believe that philanthropic work is more than a handout. It's a handheld. To activate this belief, we independently create dynamic and impactful programming to serve communities in need. Word salad. We also partner with key organisations and leaders to identify immediate needs, build meaningful initiatives, and drive long-term change. It's very easy to talk about driving long-term change, isn't it? Because you could say, we're driving the long-term change without having anything to show for it. And of course, as you'll learn as I move further through this video, their concept of partnering is really just riding on the back of others. Now, of course, there are many famous people who lend their names and their presence to philanthropy. They allow themselves to be used in fronting a campaign, of talking about the plight of a particular group of society that requires assistance by way of charity. There are those, of course, that may well give their time in terms of doing a concert to raise funds, taking part in perhaps a sporting event, which is done for charity. There are, of course, many people who aren't famous who get sponsorship to do marathons, to do sitting in a tub of baked beans to set a new world record, and do so without any fanfare other than seeking some kind of publicity to get more people involved in donating money to their cause. With famous people, of course, they have the advantage that they can persuade people to get behind a cause for the purposes of a relevant charity, etc. And often they get their own hands dirty by going to the place and helping out and making speeches, etc. What we see with Harry's wife, of course, is it's all about being seen and very little of the doing. For instance, the most obvious example is turning up at Uvalde with some crappy vending machine sandwiches and trying to piggyback off the empathy of others by turning up and wandering around the memorial and making it look like she cared, all for a film and photographic opportunity. Of course, that spectacularly backfired, with many people disgusted by her ghoul-like behaviour. And of course, the hypocrisy of her activities demonstrated by the fact that she turned up at Uvalde as a mum, but failed to turn up at Buffalo as a black person, showing what her priorities truly are. The rest of this letter explains, since its founding in 2020 by Prince Harry and Harry's wife, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the Archwell Foundation has built a growing body of work rooted in the philosophy of compassion, connection and care. With the leadership of the Duke and Duchess, we have cultivated strong strategic partnerships with leading organisations. In other words, these organisations existed already, and Harry's wife has come along and said, "Oh, I'm empathic, I'll partner with you." Of course, these organisations could have said no, and they will have believed that, well, why not? She gains publicity. Whether they'll be as willing to involve her now, given the adverse publicity that she embodies, remains to be seen. They've explained in this letter that they've invested millions of dollars, remember, not their dollars, but dollars of other people, the other partners, and of course the people who've donated. Invested millions of dollars across the non-profit space for sustainable programs and campaigns, and designed a strategy centered on large and lasting community impact. The results of their work are undeniable, both through metrics that can be seen and an emotional impact that can be felt. I would suggest, of course, that the measurements of them are as a consequence of the people who are doing the work themselves and nothing to do with Harry and his wife. Baked into all that we do is the core belief that our collective well-being and mental health are paramount. Our initiatives between 2020 and 2022 have included investments in vaccine equity, global relief centres, refugee resettlement, the care of families and communities in need, and the reshaping of our online world with the support of groundbreaking leaders in this space. Thank you for helping us create lasting impact and drive systemic change, one act of service at a time. That comes from James Holt and Shauna Knepp, co-executive directors of the Archwell Foundation. There's a quote underneath. Harry's wife and Harry turn compassion into boots. Well, do you mean boots on the ground? Why would compassion into boots be of any use to anybody? Through their Archwell Foundation. In a world where everyone has an opinion about people they don't know, the Duke and Duchess have compassion for the people they don't know. They don't just opine, they run towards the struggle. You'll have come across this quote before. It comes from Jose Andres, chef and founder of World Central Kitchen. It was a quote from the Time 100 in 2021, the hairdresser cover, if you recall. What an absolute load of poppycock that's been issued about them. The usual dig at saying, in a world where everyone has an opinion about people they don't know. The Duke and Duchess have compassion for people that they don't know. Well, they certainly don't have any compassion for the people they do know, particularly with regard to Harry's wife. Look at the string of friends that have been left behind, her family that's been ostracised, and her in-laws that have been ostracised. Where's the compassion there? There isn't any. And do you know why? Of course you do, because she's a narcissist. We then get the contents page, and there's some pictures of Harry and Harry's wife. Harry talking to a gentleman who looks like he's lost his arm, and then the pair of them at the World Health Organization. Of course, she's there posing as one of our Jawas as missing, both wearing masks, and in front of them, of course, is Harry's wife, the Duchess of Sussex, Archwell, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, Archwell, on the name card in front of them. Of course, using the titles associated to a royal family that they don't want anything to do with. There's a picture of Harry hugging some young children. I think that's from when they were in New York. Then there's the pair of them trying to look thoughtful, staring at something. An exhibit, I would imagine, of some description. And then there's some poor girl who's been scarred for life as a consequence of receiving a hug from Harry's wife, which, of course, is a physical assertion of control. The next section tells us by the numbers. At the Archwell Foundation, we know making an impact is about so much more than numbers on a page, but we hold ourselves to the highest standard, really, when it comes to measuring our work in the world. Or perhaps you mean we hold ourselves to ensuring that you will know about it as a consequence of this relationship bulletin, which is what this impact report actually is. It's a form of relationship bulletin utilised by Harry's wife to say to everybody, look how good I am. It tells us 12.66 million COVID-19 vaccines procured for the global population through our partnership with Global Citizen. I imagine that Global Citizen did all the work with regard to the procuring of those vaccines. Did Harry's wife get on the phone and ring up the relevant pharmaceutical companies to seek the donations? I suspect she didn't. Did it go anywhere beyond Harry saying, I think you should give out your recipes, as he called it, for the vaccines for free? Probably not. Their partnership will be those two standing on the stage when she was wearing Fridge by Valentino, where they talked about something in relation to these vaccines and would have done nothing more. Yet, of course, because they have a partnership with Global Citizen, which means making one speech, they then, in typical narcissist style of Harry's wife, claim the credit of what Global Citizen does as her own. They are an extension of her. 174,497 Afghans and Ukrainians welcomed to the United States. Did Harry and Harry's wife welcome them personally? Did they diddly? This includes 74,606 Afghan allies resettled through Operations Allies Welcome and 99,981 Ukrainians paroled into the US under Uniting for Ukraine with Welcome US. Presumably, that's another partnership of Harry and Harry's wife. But they make it seem as if they were absolutely integral in those individuals somehow being resettled, that they ensured that the relevant decision makers were persuaded by Harry and Harry's wife to allow the Afghans and the Ukrainians to be welcomed to the United States. 50,000 meals served through our partnership with World Central Kitchen. Did they serve any of these meals? I suspect not. Again, there's that magic word, partnership. World Central Kitchen does the hard work. Harry's wife claims the credit. 7,468 individuals rescued from Afghanistan, not including, of course, the ones that were killed by Prince Harry, through our partnership with Human First Coalition. Did they do any of the rescuing? No. Did they speak to the people that were rescued from Afghanistan? I suspect not. Once again, the magic word partnership applies. 3,673 individuals accessed our resource guide, embracing positive masculinity with Equimundo. Whatever the fuck positive masculinity is, certainly not exhibited by Prince Harry, who's been turned into a simp by his wife. 13 academic fellows addressing society's most urgent concerns surrounding social media at the Institute for Rebooting Social Media at Harvard University, which again is more of an assertion of control by Harry's wife of wanting to say, this is how people should talk about me, and if you talk to the contrary, you're a hater and a racist. And then finally, and one, play space built to foster community and healing in, yes, Uvalde, Texas, scene of the ghoul's appearance. All of that trots out the numbers, but a simple reading of it, and where you've got more than 2 brain cells, you can see it's simply the hijacking of other people's success, something that's notorious for what narcissists do, and certainly going to be done by Harry's wife. There then is a section about responding to humanitarian crises, talks about soon after the COVID-19 pandemic hit. AWF, Archwell Foundation, took a lead role in supporting equitable access to COVID-19 vaccine tests. Took a lead role, basically, them turning up and making a speech. And then there's lots of bump about it, talking about their partnership with Global Citizen, an international education and advocacy organisation working to catalyse the movement to end extreme poverty and promote social justice. AWF helped lead a worldwide effort to equitably distribute COVID-19 vaccines to the global population, which basically means they turned up on the stage and some words came out of their mouths, and that is their view of leadership. Hugh Evans, CEO of Global Citizen, states in 2021 the Duke and Duchess of Sussex co-chaired Global Citizens Vax Live campaign. Wow. Mainly sat there, and they'll have issued some fridge magnet platitudes. It then moves on to telling us more about Afghanistan and Ukraine. Their involvement there was to provide a grant to Human First Coalition. So no actual getting in amongst all of the hard work, but doling out some money which had been donated by other people. So using other people's money to look good. It then moves on to talk about uplifting women, and that's Smart Works, which Harry's wife doesn't appear to have done much for, other than she turned up one day and gave a speech to them. And the quote here is, "The Archwell Foundation has been one of the earliest and most impactful supporters of Mums First and our grassroots movement to get mums the support they need and deserve. From paid leave, well, that seems to have stalled, to affordable childcare. What's being done in relation to that? Archwell has not only directly invested in our National Business Coalition for Childcare, therefore giving some money which belongs to other people, dedicated to expending childcare benefits for American workers, but they've helped us ignite a national conversation about the urgency of supporting mums for our economy." Oh, let's just have a conversation. Very good. I could have a conversation each and every day about narcissism, but you don't see me wandering around saying that I've launched some kind of national conversation or trying to maintain that I am some kind of do-gooder in that respect. Once again, plenty of talking from Harry's wife, because she's very good at ejecting hot air into the atmosphere. There's more showcasing about women, showing off a picture of Harry's wife on the stage with RC wipes with Harry's wife, which of course was really, as we all know from my analysis of the same, about Harry's wife ticking off a list of all things that she'd been called through her life and trying to maintain that she was not. It was nothing to do with trying to help other women. It was all about her. The report talks about fostering community. This is World Central Kitchen, and again is the partnership that's taken place, but it's the hard work of everybody else that's being piggybacked by them. There's reference again to the city of Uvalde and the building of the playground, which is really a insulting thing to come from Harry's wife after her behaviour of turning up at the memorial, as I've explained in parts passim. Then, of course, there's building a better online world, where they bang on about their involvement there. We are continuing to listen, to celebrate the next generation of leaders creating transformational changes in this space and to help bring ideas to life. What a load of word salad nonsense. AWF celebrated the young people involved in the Design It For Us coalition. Very good. I celebrated my football team winning a match the other night. Do I now need to issue a bulletin about that? No, I don't think I need to, do I? But Harry's wife does, of course. And working with Five Rights Foundation in the UK, the Duke of Sussex supported the launch of the Global Online Child Safety Toolkit, a step-by-step roadmap for policymakers and practitioners around the world. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, prominent people, famous people, can often lend their names and half an hour of their time by turning up to the launch of something so that it gets publicity. And that's fair enough. And of course, they've been doing that to an extent. But do not lose sight of the fact that the only reason Harry's wife does that is, of course, for the prime aims, because she's a narcissist. While she thinks that she's being kind, it's really being done to control people, to draw fuel, and to manage her facade, and also in other instances, raise profile for monetization parts. It's not done because she truly cares or has compassion, even though she thinks that she has. And this relationship bulletin is all about showing off what has been done. But when you examine it, and whilst I've read through the whole of it, I'm not going to go through each and every line because that would just take too long. What you see time and time again is we turned up, we said a few words, and we donated a bit of money. Aren't we brilliant? But the way they portray it is to say, we effected real change. No. Thousands of volunteers, many of which are probably unpaid, were the ones that effected the change through them actually putting some blood, sweat and tears into the activity. Of course, there's consideration about the scrutiny of all of this and how the money's being used. However, what's also interesting, whilst I'm talking about the Archwell Foundation, that Build the Herd on the Reddit thread at St. Harry's Wife explains that Archwell's non-profit's latest attempt at appearing legitimate, they filled out the bare-bones basic information on GuideStar Candid in order to earn bronze level 2023 status for transparency. However, Build the Herd observes that Archwell remains about as opaque as it gets. Build the Herd has been checking the Candid, also known as GuideStar website, regularly for information on Archwell. For those who are unfamiliar with Candid, it's an information service reporting on US non-profit organizations. Until very recently, there was no information listed for Archwell. Build the Herd just checked and discovered that a variety of information now appears, i.e. mission, names of principal officers, the entire impact report that was recently released, what I've just been talking about to you. Other than the $9 million in total assets of December 31st, 2021, which the world is already aware of, no additional financial information is shown, and the Form 990 for 2021 is not posted. Build the Herd would like to point out that the non-profit organisation itself posts the information that appears on Candid GuideStar. Build the Herd knows this because until recently, Build the Herd served on the board as treasurer of a non-profit, and they had login credentials to maintain the organisation's presence on Candid GuideStar up to date. Build the Herd explains, don't be impressed by the Bronze Transparency 2023 level that has been awarded to Archwell. It's total bullshit. An organisation receives this honour by uploading the bare bones basics of information. All smoke and mirrors. We all know that Archwell is as opaque as it gets. Archwell itself could post the organisation's Form 990 from 2021, but has chosen not to. So, interesting again that it maintains its opaque status, and we get the impact statement and the attempts to show transparency, but it's far from it. The whole foundation, of course, is just a device that's there for the serving of the prime aims, as I've explained. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.